Okay. So we're now entering the 12th day of the month of Adar, and now we're like the day before the fast. In essence, the day before the fast, right? And so you know when we think about the light that's like coming down right now, right? Because the light just doesn't like come down like a storm all at once, right? It gradually grows and intensifies, and then it's fully revealed, right? At a particular time. So there's a particular light that's going to be fully revealed during the 13th and 14th and the 15th, right? And so now we're just kind of like getting closer to that place. And so that place, is kind of like also the idea of, the idea of, just thinking about like, what is my transformation right now? As I get closer to this whole process of Purim, receiving this like what's going on with me? Like, what is my transformation? Like, how do I see the world? What's going on with me? And so one of the things is being able to kind of transcend this kind of in Purim, sometimes people, there's a custom that people have to wear costumes, right? And so this idea of the costumes is like, a whole thing where it's like, well, you know what, the costume that we put on a Purim is really saying in everyday life, we're wearing a costume, right? And the light of Purim is so great is that this is a time to leave that costume, to leave that, external self that we, are living underneath. We grew up in this particular neighborhood, we have this particular ethnicity, we read about our history, we have this certain family dynamic, all these things that make us, into like who we are, we, we that becomes who we are in the world, right? And on Purim, there's a complete unification with God, right? It's not just a light; it's a complete unification with God, and that complete unification allows us to rise to a level like that we can't imagine, right? A level that's like wow, like wow, I didn't even know, such a level existed, right? And so like that's where we're going, and the person will say, well, how does that work practically? Right? How does this like light, this unification, this elevation, how does it work practically? It works practically when we see our fellow man in the frame of God, right? When we see our fellow man in the frame of God, that's when we're in this dynamic of unification, right? When we're able to see, nature, right, the vegetation kingdom as an expression of God, in the animal kingdom, in the rock kingdom, all these kingdoms, when we see it as an expression of God, we're in this place of unification, right? So what we're trying to understand now is this concept of unification. What does it mean? Because the light of Purim is a light of unification. I didn't say it; the sages say it, right? And that's why giving the presents and giving the gifts, is this aspect of man, right? We learn that, right? It's the aspect of man. And so that aspect of man is what is in essence what we're bringing down from the heavens when we're sending that gift. So it's not just the gift itself, right? It's not like the physical gift or the tzedakah that you send. It's the energy behind it, right? It's the energy behind it is that you're drawing down this light in the frame of unification, and you're sharing from that dynamic of the energy behind the the energy behind the gift, right? So that's Mishalach Manot, right? And so that's in that frame, right? And then when we go into the Suda, right, we go into this frame of this idea of like really thinking about when you think about this the meal that Achashverosh put together. This opulent meal and all the reasons behind it, and all the things connected to the temple and all the stuff, and we participated in it, right? And you think about this idea of like, like wow, like Hashem, Hashem, had like the treasures and the jewels from the temple, from the sacrifices of the Jews and their conquests and all these things. These things are being presented to them, as mockery, as them being subservient, and them being subservient. And you see that, you're like, wow, like what's going on, And you think like, well, why do we have to understand that? Why do we have to understand, that aspect? Why do we have to understand that aspect of the story in that way, right? Like, why do we have to understand that the Jews, went to this meal, and this meal was, given to them, but the people who were giving it to them were basically making mockery of them, and they were making mockery of them by utilizing even things that were from of their ancestry, their heritage, right, and bringing those things even as utensils, as kalims, right, to be able to fulfill this kind of this masquerade ball, right? And so you think about that dynamic of that meal, right? And you think about, well, hey, you know what? What about the world that we live in today? Like we have all these religions that exist today, but at least in the monotheistic frame, most of them follow in the frame of the Torah. Most of them follow in the mechanism of the sages. Like, I mean, even circumcision, right? Like, everyone says circumcision. How do you know it's there? How do you know it's in the male reproductive organ in that way? How do you know? Where does it say it in the Torah? That this is what you want to do or how you should do it. That's an oral tradition. But yet everyone imitates it in their own way, even modern science, right? So we live in a world that's like all this is giving over so much that we've contributed to the world. I mean, look at America, look at the African American experience. I mean, is this not the meal of Achashverosh? Like they're giving us quote unquote welfare and these types of things, right? But we created the mechanism of the GDP that they have today, the wealth, right? And then we have to go to them because they've subjugated our situation, right? And now we have to come to them and be kind or suffer consequences, right? Is that not more of a metaphor for this meal with Achashverosh, right? And so this dynamic of living in that world and eating that way, that's something that we have to correct, right? Not knowing who you are, feeling that you're subjugated by physical things, right? Feeling that you're limited, feeling that the miracle or the manifestation or the prophecy is not going to happen, right? Like these types of concepts, are extremely, important going into this time because it's like, this isn't just like, okay, it's a holiday. It's like, no, this is a spiritual transformation moment, right? And so we're going to learn a couples farm, as always, right? But we're having a pep talk. We're going into this really amazing time and endless possibilities and complete unification. And so we want to be focused, right? So with that being said, I want to touch on one idea, and it's like a very high level idea, right? But it's important. It's important. So this high level idea is connected to the idea of reincarnation, right? And this is something that, is a part of the tradition and the idea that souls live in different lifetimes. There's different souls, there's different connections to different souls. Now, I don't want to go into all that, right? But there was a book written by Rabbi Chaim Vital, right, who we've learned already. Otinel's actually, going hardcore in um, Shari Kedusha, right, which is Rabbi Chaim Vital, who also wrote a book called Shari Hagugulim, right? So I just want to really read like the opening paragraph of the Sefer because it's a very important idea that I want to focus on, right? Because when we're reading about the holidays and we're reading about all these different conflicts and things that are going on, we want to have in mind, like, hey, you know what? All this is happening because of the neshamot of the souls of that generation, right? Like outside of all the things, this happened, Vashti, this, Mordechai, Haman, this, the meals, this, the whole thing, like all that had to happen because those particular set of souls had to go through that for their correction, and everyone passed or failed at their different levels, right? So, so from that standpoint, we want to be able to kind of analyze. So we're just going to open up a little bit, just to kind of like open that, you know, um, just to open up that line of thinking, you know, because it's like we again, like it's not like Thanksgiving, and I know you guys know that, but I'm just more so like speaking to people listening. It's like this is not Thanksgiving. This isn't a cultural moment. Yes, these things happen, but all these things happen were all mechanisms to guide us to ultimately be able to connect to that light, right? That's the whole, like, this is the whole mechanism. All this is about connecting to the light. Why? Because our soul needs it. Our soul needs this light, and there's so many ideas that are said about the power of this light, and we're gonna continue to go into it. All right, so let's get in this Sharga Uling. We're not trying to become scholar. I'm not learning the Sefer as of yet, right? But the opening idea, I think, is something to think about. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so it says Zu'uni Talik Meshim Chazal Ki Chamash Neshama. Chamash, okay, Chamisha. Sorry, Chamisha Neshama Yish Ali Nefesh, right? All right, so we got it where he's going with it. All right, so he says like this. He says, we start with what is written by Chazal, that there are 5 names given to the Nefesh. Okay, you hear that? This is crazy. Whoa, you guys know the levels already. He already hit you with a swing. So there's 5 levels. There's 5 names given to the level of Nefesh, which is the lowest part of the soul, right? So I thought it was just animal. All right. So anyway, so he says, in the order of them, from the lowest to the highest is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, and Yekida. Okay, so that's interesting. So he says, okay, so he just comes in automatically. He says, we start with what's written by Chazal that there are. Okay. So when he says Nefesh, he's not saying Nefesh in that way. All right, fine. He's not saying Nefesh. He's just saying the soul. You should. I mean, if we were speaking in the normal English, he says there's 5 levels to the soul. Okay, so what you guys already know that you guys are experts on this, right? So he says, know that a person, Adam, right? Adam itself is the spirituality that is inside a body. Okay? So the concept of Adam, right? Adam is the spiritual essence inside the body, and the body is a garment, a levush. He says for the person, but the body is not the person itself. Okay, so you hear that? So this is a big concept. So he's saying, so the spirituality inside of a person, that neshama, that is a concept of Adam. The body itself is not the concept of Adam. He says the body is just a garment for the person, but it is the body is not the person itself. So the person is not the body. The body. All right, just get this right. So what Rabbi Chaim Vital is saying is that the body itself, right? The body itself is is only a garment for Adam, right? But it's not. But the body itself is not an expression. It's not Adam, but it's just rather a garment. It's like saying like you see like you see you have these like models and different people, male, females. They're on these runways or wearing these these outfits, whatever. So they're wearing the outfits, right? And that outfit that they're wearing is not necessarily even their outfit. I mean, they're wearing it for work, right? And then after they finish that work, they got to leave those clothes there. They don't take the clothes home, right? I mean, most of the time at least, right? So it's the same thing. It's like the light force is the model, and the clothes, are the are the garments, right? Or just the garments, right? He says, okay, so he says, as it says, the flesh does not cover up the person, just as the Zohar says in Parsha Bereshit. It says chapter 20, verse 2. As you know, that the person is in all four worlds. God, you know what? You guys already know this stuff. This is amazing. So Rav Ashlag, who comes way later, right, gives you guys the language to go back in time, and you can read this and understand what's going on. Okay, so he says, I'm just saying, wow, what an amazing thing we can learn about the worlds of the universe in the ancient texts. So he says, it is known that the person is the source of four worlds, right? Abiyah, right? Atzilut, Bria, Yitzira, and Asya. And it is obvious that there are parts of each world within them. He says each of these parts are what we refer to above as from the five names of the soul. So we already know that. You guys already learned it. You learned that the level of Chaya is the level of Adam Kadmon, and an aspect of Yechida is the aspect of Asilut, right? And the aspect of Bria is the aspect of Bria is the world of Neshama, and the world of Yitzira is in the frame of Ruach, and the Asya is in the frame of Nefesh, right? So you have that system. We learned it. We learned it by Rav Ashlag. So we are on the same page. Rav Chaim Vital, we're with you. He says, but we do not merit to take all of them in one moment. Rather, we earn them through our merits. He says, first we take a coarse part which is called nefesh. Afterwards, if we merit, we take ruach. And just as we described in multiple places in the Sefer Zohar and Parsha Vayechi and Parsha Truma, and he says, and specifically at the beginning of Parsha Mishpatim. What is it? What did we learn? He says, when a person is born, he is given a nefesh. And after we explain this, I need to let you know more of what is said above. All right, so I don't want to go so. I know it's enticing and it's juicy, and I want to go into it more, but I don't want that. We're right now. We're in the frame of Purim, and that frame of Purim is getting prepared for this fast and being in the mindset of understanding that we want to cleanse our vessel. This isn't like self-sacrifice. I'm not saying I know I know there's other religions out there that are very much into fasting, and I know a lot of them. And I would just say that like I said to a lot of my friends who do this fasting thing for a month. I didn't say it to them. I have relatives that do it. But I didn't say it to them, but just friends. I'm like, you guys need a preparation process, because when you just come into something and you just fast, it's such a shock to the body that like it'll take you a couple weeks just for your body to get used to that routine of eating. And then even by then you could maybe start dealing with other aspects of your development. But at first, you're just struggling with the eating thing. And so, like, what's the preparation? And so for us, it's a 1 day fast. So our preparation is consciousness. Like what's happening by us. What's you know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like what's happening on this thing? Are we just fasting? Is this a thing? Are we actually cleansing ourselves? So so the light can rest upon us. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, at the end of the day, like that was one of the big concepts of when I first went to the Kabbalah Center. Was just kind of like, I was like, wait, like at the end of the day, everything that we are pursuing is is for the light of the Creator. You know what I mean? Like everything that we're doing is for the light of the Creator, and so you know, so that's really what we want. Like that. I mean, like at the end of the day, it's like when you think about anybody who wants to be successful, they ultimately want the light of the Creator. You know what I mean? Like that's what they want, right? And so they just don't know how to get it. So we like grow up in a society, and society says, okay, you do this, you do that, you do this, and we're like, okay, that's how you create to the light of the Creator. And even sports, like when you look at the sports and the guys you're watching as a kid, and the guy has like mud all over his face, and his team's around them, and the people are yelling, and he's putting his hand up, and he's speaking about God, right? And and you look at that, and you're like, wow, well, I want to feel like that, right? How many times have we seen television or a commercial or something like that, and we say, hey, you know what? I want to feel like that, right? And when we understand like the power of that idea, like I want to feel like that, what is that feeling that we want? Oh, I want to feel this peace, this tranquility, this excitement, this adrenaline, this whole thing, blah blah blah. I want to feel all these things, right? But at the end of the day, it's the life force of the Creator, right? That's the whole thing. And the whole thing is, and that's another thing about the life force of the Creator. There's no bureaucracy to it, right? Like there's no bureaucracy to this idea of the life force of the Creator. You could go and speak to you know you could go and speak to whoever you want, right? You could go and speak to God whenever you want. No one can stop you. You don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to like negotiate a deal. You know what I mean? Like you could just talk to the Creator. And so like that's this idea. It's like saying this unification is understanding that it's a whole new ball game. Like this is about connection to the light. It doesn't matter how much quote unquote success you have in someone else's system, in a whole someone else's matrix. They created the system. They created the interest rates. When I say they, I'm not talking about ethnicity. I'm talking about the klipa. I'm talking about the Sitra Akra, right? I'm talking about that. This is the world we're living in. Their world, the world that's here to like deceive us. That is anything other than purification and being connected to Hashem. If I was a hippie, I'd say I'd be connected to the divine. All right, so let's go back into this dynamic of Esther and Mordechai in really getting into it. This is the beginning of their grace, their greatness, right? Everything we heard before was like happenstance, right? Him, the Achashverosh, Vashti, getting rid of her, this, the whole Mordecai hearing the plot, this, blah blah. Those are all happenstance situations. But here, but here, this is where it got real, right? And this is where this dynamic of where Esther and Mordecai rose to greatness. And so by reading this, we're reading like number one, this is the challenge is that their souls need it. I mean, we don't know Esther and Mordecai, who they were, why they need this challenge. I mean, we could ask that question, right? Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Maybe that's part of the essence, it's things that we'll never know. But nevertheless, they needed it. So this is the aspect of annihilation, and and we're going into it, but this is the beginning of their greatness, right? The beginning of their greatness is happening right now. He says, this is the text. He says, this is the text of the decree which Haman issued to the heads of all the nations regarding the annihilation of the Jews. He says, this therein is written by me, the great officer of the king, his second in rank, the first among the grandants, and one of the seven princes, and the most distinguished among the noble of the realm, in agreement with the ruler of the province, the prince and the king, the chiefs and the lords and the eastern kings, and the straps, and all being of the same language, write you in the order of King Achashverosh this writing sealed with his signet. so that you may not so it may not be sent back concerning the great eagle Israel. The great eagle has stretched out its pinions over the world. Neither bird or breast could withstand it. But but there came a great lion, Nebuchadnezzar, and dealt a great and dealt the great eagle a stinging blow. His pinions strapped, his feathers were plucked out, and his feet were hacked off, and the whole world has enjoyed rest, cheer, and tranquility since the moment the eagle was chased from the area until this day. Now we notice that he is using all efforts to secure wings. He is permitting his feathers to grow with intention of covering us, and the whole world as he did unto our forefathers. At the instance of the at that I mean at the insistence sorry, at the instance of Ahasuerus and all the magnates of the king of Medina and Persia are assembled, we are writing you in your joint, and we're writing you our joint advice as follows: set snares for the eagle and capture him before before he renews his strength and soars back to his eyrie. We advise you to tear out his plumage and break his wings and give his flesh to the fowl of the heavens. Split the eggs lying in the nest and crush his young so that his memories will vanish from the world. Our counsel is not like unto the Pharaohs. He sought to destroy only the men of Israel. To the women he did not harm. And it is not like unto the plan of Asaph, who wanted to snare his brother and keep his children as slaves. It is not like unto the tactics of Amalek, who pursued Israel and smote it hindmost and feeble, but left the strong unscathed. It is not like unto the policies of Nebuchadnezzar, who carried them away into exile and settled them near in their own home. It is not like unto the ways of Shnerbokbim. I guess I don't know what that means. He says, who assigned the land unto the Jews as fair as their own has been. He says, we have recognized clearly that what the situation is, and have resolved to slay the Jews, annihilate them, young and old, so their name and their memory may be no more. And their prosperity be cut off forever. So this guy's serious. This is when we go back in history, what he was just saying is that there's been plans to annihilate, Israel throughout history, right? And they've all failed. But in this particular thing, this guy thinks by just his thing is just like it just kill everybody. And this is actually the guy in Germany. That was kind of like his idea too, right? He said the edict issued by Ahasuerus against the Jews thus ran: to all the people, the nations, and races, peace be upon you. He says, this is to acquaint you that one came to us and is not of our nation and not of our land, in Amalek, the son of the great ancestors, and his name is Haman. He is made trifling request of me, saying, among us who dwell of the people. Okay, wait. Let's see. Okay, so I just trying to make sure I'm clear. Okay, so the edict issued by Ahasuerus against the Jews ran thus: okay, to all the people, the nations, races, peace be upon you. This is to acquaint you that one came to us who is not of our nation and not of our land, an Amaleki, the son of the ancestors, and his name is Haman. He made a trifling request to me, saying, "Among us dwells a people, and the most despicable of all, who are a stumbling block in every time. They are exceedingly presumptuous, and they know our weaknesses and our shortcomings. This curse, they curse the king in these words, which are consistent in their mouth. God, God God is the king of the world forever and ever, and he will make the heathen. Uh, he will make the heathen to uh, to perish out of his land. He will execute vengeance and punish among the people. From the beginning of all time, they have been ungrateful, as witness their behavior towards Pharaoh. With the kindness he received them, their wives, their children, and at the time of a famine, he gave up to them the best of the land, and he provided them with the food and all that they needed. Then Pharaoh desired to build a palace and requested the Jews to do it for him. And they began to work grudgiously. It means murmuringly, and it did not and it is not completed until this day. And in the midst of it, they approached the Pharaoh with these words: "We wish to sacrifice our gods in a place that is 3 days' journey from here. And we petition thee to lend us silver and gold and vessels and clothes and apparel." So much did they borrow that each one bore 90, I guess 90 donkeys loads with him. And Egypt was emptied out. And he says, when the 3 days had eclipsed, they did not return. Pharaoh pursued them in order to recover the stolen treasures. What did the Jew? He says, what did the Jews? He says they had among them a man by the name of Moses, and the son of Amram, an arch wizard, who had been bred in the house of Pharaoh. And when he reached the sea, this man raised his staff and cliffed the water and led the Jews through them th- the Jews through them dry shed, while Pharaoh and his host were drowned. So this is very interesting. Obviously, we're like hearing how the other nations saw this blatant miracle, right? This blatant miracle in front of them. This is how they saw it. And when I'm hearing this, it really makes me kind of like think about the book of Esther in a different way, right? And saying that the book of Esther is basically saying that it doesn't have God's name in it, right? And we think about it, there's different reasons. We've heard different reasons, right? But I'm thinking about it right now from just reading this midrashim on this, and thinking about, well, the book of Esther is saying that people of that generation didn't see God, right? It was the people of that generation, they didn't see God. And the only way they were able to see God is that the Jews woke up and they start seeing God. But we're seeing the opposite perspective of like people seeing all these miraculous events and they still blocked it out, right? This is like a true non-believer, right? He says these gods help them as long as they observe his law. He says so none can prevail against them. Balaam, the only prophet we heathens ever had, they slew him with a sword, and as they did unto Sheon and Og, powerful kings of Canaan, whose land they took after killing them. Likewise, they brought ruins upon Amalek and the great and the glorious ruler, they and Saul their king and Shmuel their prophet. Later, they had an unmerciful king David by name, who smote the Philistines and the Amorites and the Moabites, and did not and not one of them could discomfort him, right? Discomfort him. I don't read English anymore. Anyway, so it says Solomon, the son of this king, became wise, and he built a house of worship in Jerusalem. And they did not. He says that they may not scatter to all parts of the world. But after they, oh, that's an interesting point. So he's saying like they built the temple because they wanted the Jews to like stay there. It's like it became a thing. He says, but after they had been guilty of many crimes against their God, he delivered them into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, who deported them to Babylon. He says, to this day they are among us, and through they are under our hand. We are of none account in their eyes. Their religion and their laws are different from the religions and the laws of all the other nations. Their sons do not marry other daughters, or our gods they do not worship, and they do not regard for, and they have no regard for our honor. And they refuse to bend the knee before us, as the Boys and Men song, right? It says, calling themselves freemen, they are not. They are not they are not of our service, and they command. In our command, they do not heed. Therefore, the grandees and the princes and the satraps have been assembled before us, and we have taken counsel together. They have a real argument. Like these people, this is. I mean, this is crazy. This is like Book of Esther. Chazal, is really responsible, largely for this manuscript. And this is like more than 2,000 years ago, and it sounds exactly like right now, right? And even 2,000 years ago, even before, it sounds like the book of Exodus, right? When a new peril comes in, it's the same type of stuff. Now, then, ever. So maybe we could learn out also that through the Sefer and the way the Sefer is written, that the concept of anti-Semitism, this idea of the souls of Israel, right? No matter what skin tone they come out of, right? Maybe we could see that it's this constant fear of the other nations from him, that the other nations band against his people, and even if they don't even know that they're children of Israel, they get reminded of it, right? Okay, so they're on this like really like on some vicious stuff. We had sent this edict to 127 provinces of my empire to slay them, their sons, their wives, and their little children on the 13th day of the month of Adar. None is to escape, as they did to our forefathers and desired to do to us. So shall it be done unto them, and their possessions shall be given over to the spoilers. And thus shall ye do, that ye may find grace before me. This is the writings of the letter that I sent to you, Ahasuerus of Medina and Persia. Okay, this is serious stuff. The price Haman offered for the king of the Jews was 10,000 hundredweights of silver. He took the number of Jews at the Exodus from. Okay, so the Haman offered the king of the Jews. All right, the price Haman offered for the king of the Jews was 10,000 hundredweights of silver. He took the number of the Jews at the Exodus from Egypt, 600,000. So this is how he came to this number. This guy's so random. So he says he took the number of Jews at their Exodus from Egypt, 600,000 as the base of his calculation, and offered a half a shekel for every soul of them, and summed up each Israelite to pay nearly for the maintaining of the sanctuary. Through the sum was that vast that Haman could not find a coin enough to pay it, but promised to deliver it in the form of silvers and bars. Achashverosh refused the random. He when Haman made the offer, he said, "Let us cast a lot, and thou draw us Israel, and draw the money when the sale stands as a valid transaction." So you guys understand what's going on? If he reversed it, it is not valid because of the sins of the Jews, and the sale was confirmed by the lots. But Haman was not too pleased with his own success. He disliked giving up the large sum of money. Observing his ill humor, Ahasuerus said, "I keep the money. I do not care to make or lose money on account of the Jews." All right, so basically, it's just kind of like showing this kind of like very like psychopathic, you know, thing. It's like when you think about like even the lynchings in the South, it's just like they have like cotton candy parties. I've seen those images, and it's the same way they're talking about the Jews right now. The Israelites are like, oh, we could do this by them, this whole thing. For the Jew, it was fortunate that the king, did not accept money for them, else his subjects would not have obeyed his second edict, the one favorable to the Jews. They would have been able to advance the argument that the king that the argument that the king, by accepting a sum of money for them, had resigned the rights over to the Jews in favor of Haman, who therefore could deal with them as he pleased. The agreement with Haman was concluded at a Keros by way of punishment for the crime of the sons of Jacob, who have unmercifully sold their brother Joseph into slavery and to the Ishmaelites while eating and drinking. So this is like, it keeps going further. So the conclusion that they come up with is like that they need to, the reason why they need to, the reason why they need to take out Israel is because of what they did to their brother. That they're all descendants of those 12 tribes, and the fact that they sold their brother into slavery, they should all be punished. Like, this is insane. They're literally just thinking of a way to punish the Jews. And so, what is crazy about this? What's crazy about it is it's like you have these people say, "I don't hate Jews, I hate Zionists." You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, yeah, Zionists are evil. They're baby killers. They're these things. And it's just like, wait, where did that come from? Zion and Zionist just means that someone's just returning back to Zion to worship God. The government, that's a whole nother thing. It's nothing. I mean, you could say it's an act of Zion. I mean, you could say whatever, but the core basis is for Jews to be able to come into the land away from Mashiach, right? So anyway, so he says the joy of this Jew-hating couple for Achashverosh hated the Jews with no less fierce a hatred. Haman was shared by Haman did was shared. He says, let me go back. No less than the fierce hatred than Haman did was shared by none. The capital of Shushan was in mourning and sorrow, perplexed. Scarcely had the edict of the annihilation been promulgated against the Jews. And when all the different misfortunes began to happen in the city, women who were hung up, their wash to dry on the roof, and their houses dropped dead. Jeez. Men who went to draw water fell into the wells and lost their lives. He says, while Achashverosh and Haman were making merry in the palace, in the cities, in the city had thrown into consideration and consideration and mourning. Right. All right. So I think we get the idea of this part of this section of this conversation, right? Because we have to when we experience, we should learn at such a depth that we can experience what's going on thousands of years ago today, right? And we could transcend, and that's why I talk about, because we're all African American, right? I mean, there's people listening that aren't, but the point is just saying that still, I'm speaking from that perspective, right? To people who understand it, and so because we want to connect to that kedusha that's coming down from the heavens, and we want to bring it into this world through the story of Purim, through our own lives. Right? We want to personalize it. It's not over there. It's God directly communicating to us. He's directly communicating to us with this light during this time of during Adar. This is the last part of the cycle of the year, which is an accumulation of all the whole year itself, all those lights. And there's some sources we'll play tomorrow on Purim that have to do with how Purim in essence is the basis of all the lights of all the holidays. And we'll go in and we'll bring sources. And earlier today, I was learning with Otinel, and we celebrated the death anniversary of a very humongous scholar the Chida. But I brought in, some video footage of other rabbis explaining it, right? Because it was nice. It was a great edification. So tomorrow we're going to touch on a little bit, of some of the same scholars, in their, presentation, not the whole thing, but, I want to go into this idea of what Purim is, right? And more into this depth of Purim in conjunction with what we're learning now, right? Because it has to exist now. It's light. It's not over there. It's not like Thanksgiving, it's not Christmas. It's not New Year's Eve. You know what I mean? It's not like something that's over there. It's like, no, this is you and God. And God has created these portals of understanding so you can receive this light. Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, Rob, I'm outside with it, so you probably won't be able to hear me too well. So,
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
okay. Just the aspect of um, the soul and the body. I think humanity has went the wrong direction of thinking that the body is the 99%. And it's just not true. When you look at Hakadosh Baruch Hu, he created Adam. He blew the soul into the body. The body was a separate entity. The soul came from the inner essence of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what we are. That's who we are. The body is just a garment, and then the clothes you put on top of the body is another garment. Going to the levels. So the things of this life are transitory. Um, when my father, of blessed memory, he passed away, he took nothing with him. Took nothing at all with him. All the stuff that he tried to accomplish in his life, the things that he did accomplish, the materials, none of that went with him. And it made me really think, like, what went before him? And our sages teach us that it's the misvote. That's the currency of Shemayim. The misvote. What did you do? It's a space of receipts. It's not a space of doing. So just encourage everyone to feed the soul. The soul is the 99%. What we see, what we experience every single day, it's the 1%. It's just the hallway before we get to the banquet, room. So not to get confused, not to get, you know, placed in the wrong position. Like in art, you always say don't play yourself. In this life, don't play yourself. Find out what's important, which is Torah and the mitzvot, and reality. So you can have a place in the world to come.
Shalom. My reflections are just that thinking about how we are preparing, for this fast, excuse me, and we're thinking of and just thinking about how we will be um, allowing our flesh to be subjected to what the Creator had ordained long before through our ancestors, and then we take it a step further after we go through the time of fasting, and we prepare ourselves to receive that light that we're going to hear the Megillah read, and we're just believing for those miracles that transpired during that time to be very, very present with us even right now. Because just in thinking about the fact that we are even still here right now and able to uh, return back to this covenant is just the attestament of the miracles that have been manifesting throughout the years and the prayers of the righteous, that prayed for us to be able to be here. And so, as we go through this process, we have to just understand more and more that um, it's very relevant to us right now, and it's not like the holidays that many other nations they gather and they celebrate or whatever the case may be. That's for them, but this has a very important pivotal point to how we are to take back what the Creator put in place for our ancestors, and that's still present for us to experience those miracles. I was reading something pretty. I thought it was kind of funny. It was a little commentary about Esau and Jacob. And what it said was that when Esau met Jacob, he hugged him with the intent of biting his neck. But Jacob's neck turned into marble. Hence, the dots in the word for he kissed him, indicating that Esau kissed him. His kiss was insincere. So, we have a lot of things that we have personally experienced that we know that was no sincerity in that, or no, real genuine love there. But at the end of it all, if we continue to press forward with Hashem, we'll begin to see that this was all for his esteem, and so that we can continue to go up and purify from the nefesh to the ruach to our neshama, and just continue to go on, so that pure light, from the kitar, that it will shine down and illuminate through us. And so we got to just purify in this point in time. So I'm just really thankful for all the lessons, and Toda.
Right, right. Shalom, shalom. Uh, just my reflection, Baruch Hashem, is it just kind of puts my mind on how everything around us, and how everything, life, basically life for the Jew is like a costume. It really is. It's a costume, and it just kind of makes me think about, not using your eyes to make decisions, and not using your eyes to understand a matter. Kind of going back to that 1%, because it's interesting when we look at the conversation between um, Haman and Ahasuerus. It's like they're plotting, and but they're trying to plot in a way that that is like a costume, that it looks one way, but there's, hey, let's throw this feast to make the Jews sin. Let's send, let's set them up, basically. But they want to make it look good. Um, but also the reasoning. You brought up something. You said that they kind of got to a place where they say, well, you know what, yeah, because they sold their brother into slavery, this is justifiable, basically. Um, that concept has been a garment that has been put upon our people. The same garment, the same excuse for an enemy to destroy us was done to the 10 martyrs. The 10 martyrs, um, Rabbi Kiva being one of them, may his memory be blessed. The Caesar at that time, I think it was Hadrian, but I don't remember. But he used that as an excuse to kill the elders of the Sanhedrin, and cause the holy place to be shut down. The house of judgment to be shut down. Um, but also, you know, when we look at us putting on these costumes, and wearing the costumes and so forth, and even fasting, is as if to say, the world around us is looking, and they may see Jews all over the world on this day, on the day of fasting, that we're fasting, and they may look and say, oh man, they're not eating, they're afflicting themselves, they're doing all these different things, but not realizing, they see that one essence, but not realizing, projecting that abstract substance upon us, but not realizing that our soul is being strengthened, that our soul is connecting, and that our soul is becoming stronger on that day, preparing for something great. And then when they see us with the costumes on, Like, oh man, look at that. They're just like clowns. They're this, that. But still not seeing the true essence that man, we're celebrating our deliverance. We're celebrating um, the fact that the garment that you see today is that our God isn't with us. That fact that the costume that you're seeing is that we look like a bunch of fools. But in reality, Hashem is doing something. He didn't even have to give his name. He doesn't have to say anything at all. When they're laughing under those trees, when they're laughing and we're being lynched and murdered and women are being raped and all these different things. The world's looking. They can see that costume. They can see antebellum slavery in the South. They can see the horror of slavery, right? But even though it looks horrible, it's just a costume because it's a part of our correction, it's a part of our strengthening. And when we come out of it, that's why we come out with such great wealth. The wealth is not just the gold and the silver. And in closing, you know, I was just reflecting on something the other day. We were thinking about Moshe's birthday and his day of death, and it hit me, and I was like, wow, this is the same time right now, um, during the time of Moshe's birth, they were throwing our children, our sons, into the Nile. You know, this is going on right now. You see, and so here we are still. It looks like George Floyd is on the ground, and you have all of these injustices and all of these things that's happening, but it's all a costume because the greatness is what we're going to see at the end. And so that I really appreciate this and Toda Rabbi.
Yeah, the thing is, on that point, when we talk about the light and what we're preparing for, we're preparing for Pesach, right? This light of elevation that we're connecting to is connecting us to is building us to Pesach, right? And this light of Pesach is going to elevate us into a whole nother reality, a whole new stratosphere. So one leads to the other. And then after we receive this dynamic of this connection to Pesach, we go into the date counting of the Omer. And each day, another specific light that comes to build us and getting us all the way to the point on the 6th of Sivan where we receive the light of Matan Torah, right? So we're going up the escalator now. We're going up the escalator with purity, with vigor, with fierce, with courage, and we're elevating to this new reality, right? So Pesach is a complete purification that allows us to be able to receive Nisan. All right, so we'll continue tomorrow back on normal schedule. Baruch atah Adonai, leolam amen ve'amen.